An important reminder from our 44th president.
Yeah, the most important office in this democracy is the citizen, the ordinary person.
Thank you so much.
And how excited was I when I discovered that this ordinary person had crossed paths with the one and only Barack Obama, in another life, of course, before he became president. That crossing of paths is a part of my mother Sylvia's story.
Remarkably,
and mine.
Sylvia earned both her degrees in concurrent years with the youngest of her 6 children, all while holding down a full-time nursing job and taking care of a forever expanding family. As it turns out, Sylvia actually attended Barack Obama's graduation at Columbia University. Imagine, her youngest received her bachelor's degree at the same time and place as the future 44th President of the United States of America.
Funny thing, it's just like my path with the town of Hollis would cross again and again. Back in the day, our house in Richmond Hill would be that special house on the block where the kids would hang out, and those special times would be enhanced by a well-stocked freezer in the basement filled with goodies from Gau's. You know, Gau's, that rhymes with cows. Our weekly trips to Gau's would take us right through Hollis, and I would always marvel at the quaintness and the antiquity of the houses and wonder about who must have lived there. By the way, speaking of Richmond Hill, I was having a conversation with a neighbor earlier this week, and I mentioned Richmond Hill, and she said, I used to live there. It turns out we were living exactly 8 blocks away from each other then, and now we live right across the street in Hollis. There was a certain curly-haired radio DJ who befriended me in my Columbia University days, unknown to me then, but a bona fide link to Hollis if ever there was one.
Phil Shop, a renowned authority on jazz, was born in 1951 in what he called the jazz bedroom community of Hollis. He told the New York Times in 1998, the entire jazz community had moved into my neighborhood. As a child, Roy Eldridge was his friend, and so was Lenny Tristano, Milt Hilton, and Lester Young, among others. Count Basie's drummer, Papa Joe Jones, was actually his babysitter. Phil had an astounding memory loaded with information shared by legions of jazz musicians.
Then there was bumping into Carl at the first neighborhood association meeting I attended in Hollis about a year before I actually moved here, only to discover that we were already acquainted with each other from work, all the way in the Bronx at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, where I worked as a bilingual speech and language pathologist. Here we all are, years later, helping to beautify Hollis. Shout out to Angela Miskis and for all the amazing volunteer work she has done through Abuela Neighborhood Maintenance. Hello, and welcome to Marie at the Ketcham House. Always a pleasure to know that you are here. Like, comment below to let me know what you think, and subscribe to be notified of upcoming videos. And share, please share with your neighbors, families, friends, and your entire community so they too can enjoy the content that I'm so very delighted to present. Look at this amazing scenery, guys. Footage from Kenyan YouTuber Only Mawida. Do check him out. Right now I'm learning all about the communities in and about Mombasa, Kenya. So cool and so beautiful. Well, today I'm excited to talk about game changers in the outstanding community of Hollis, New York. So let's get started. More than just the hood, just 100 years ago, Hollis was very rural, and so much has taken place since then. Imagine artifacts, documents, videos, stories, and images secured in one place. Just being able to step back in time to experience Hollis of old. It's funny how we're taught national and international history in school, but very rarely is there mention of local history. When, without a doubt, knowing the history of the town that you grew up in, or where you're attending school, or even where you go to work, is an essential part of getting to know the community that impacts your day-to-day existence, your daily experiences, the community that grounds you. This knowledge provides context for the present. It fosters a sense of belonging and identity. Pauline Mimms, identified as one of Hollis's own, was a producer, writer, and director who was at the center of the hip-hop scene. She co-founded Rush Productions with Russell Simmons and Curtis Blow. Donald Richard Daly, a popular community activist, history teacher, Korean War veteran, botanist, and landscaper, was feeling overlooked and underserved. With no news media circulating in the area, he had the idea to create a website dedicated to the community, namely Hollis NY and Hollis New York, which turns out to be one of the most widely quoted websites about Hollis. Michael D. Kurtz, a Hollis way back, is a community activist and dentist who has long supported Hollis NY, even after Donald Daly's passing in 2001. An award-winning dentist who came to live in Hollis as a child in 1959. He attended PS 35 and has been very active in communities near and far, but still maintains his dentistry practice at his home office in Hollis. There's something very special about this place. Hollis seems to attract people who don't hesitate to take action for the greater good of the community, like Elsie San Louis, founder of Haitian Americans United for Progress, which strives to connect people from all backgrounds, immigrants as well as citizens, to the resources they need in order to have a better quality of life. You've come a long way, Hollis, and it's inspiring to see. But not all the stories regarding Hollis have been about immediate growth and advancement. There was a crack epidemic that brought Hollis to its socio-economic knees.
The high was it's so intense that people became violent on it.
In urban areas, drug-related violence is out of control.
So they're dealing in a criminal justice system in which they're arresting some of the worst of the worst. In 72 hours, they're back in the street.
South Jamaica, Queens was a very troubled area.
Rough to grow up in this neighborhood.
Police said that the drug buyers felt less threatened in the quiet tree-lined streets of Hollis.
Every night, streams of cars from Long Island pour off the Cross Island Parkway and stop at quiet street corners, bringing customers to buy the smokable form of cocaine. As a result, in previously peaceful areas, residents now talk of the crack wars and a growing fear among residents that they could be punished for knowing, seeing, or saying too much.
I have the most embarrassing
Danny
story
was a
ever.
heroin addict.
No, that's not
That
embarrassing.
embarrassing?
The Simmons brothers grew up in crime and heroin-ridden Hollis.
Russell came home late night, high off of weed. I ate pizza. I left it, I put it in the garbage.
Yet each brother managed to achieve unanticipated levels of success.
He looked in the garbage can. He just like stood there with red eyes. How long was it in there?
First time I saw a hip hop performer, and instead of selling drugs, I wanted to now sell music. That was an exciting moment, you know. It was like the realization I could do something else.
He would wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning, on fire with ideas, and it really inspired me to be around somebody that was that passionate about something.
We all support each other. We were all artists. Even if I'm an entrepreneur, I produced records at one time, and I always think of it as a creative process. And I think Joey and Danny even more so. To make a piece of art and sell it and survive off it is a rarity.
My connection to this industry is because of Russell and his fascination with music. I got blessed by God and ended up being the biggest artist he had at the time.
We grew up listening to my father read poetry around the house. My mother's teaching us to paint.
You know, my father respected what you learned in the culture in the street, but he also cared deeply about education. He never really accepted, even for a second, what was handed to us. It stuck with me. It stuck by all my brothers as well. Some of the songs Rev written and the poetry that Danny writes is about social justice.
Music was a way out, but mothers still lost their children to violence, imprisonment, or because they left the neighborhood in search of better opportunities. By the time I arrived in Hollis at the end of the 1990s, the area lacked the vitality of youth. Children were no longer riding bikes on the sidewalk, and the homes were mostly populated by older residents, older women. But those who remained continued to fight for their community. Sandra Atwell is a retired teacher, a way back, who has lived in Hollis right across from the Ketcham house since childhood. She headed Hollis 11423 Block Association and worked tirelessly for many years to represent the needs of the community. It was my pleasure to come across a group of young people in their 20s who sponsored from their own pockets movie nights and sporting events to give the youth in the community more positive influences. They had lost many loved ones and friends to the turbulent years of Hollis. When I arrived in Hollis at the end of the 1990s, I was privileged to immediately make the acquaintance of Mrs. Pulliams and the Shaws, along with Sandra Atwell, all educators with deep roots in Hollis who were extraordinarily involved in the community. Each is deserving of their own time and space, so their videos will be coming soon. By the way, if you're still viewing at this point, I'd like to send you a celebratory hoot and a holla from another resident and a national treasure, Sonny Terry. He and his wife Emma combined lived in Hollis from 1973 to 2007. And just so you know, Sonny Terry was a blind Southern blues vocalist and harmonica player who was an important figure in the folk music revival of the 1940s and 50s. His appearance at Carnegie Hall in 1939 launched his career, and about that time he began his association with guitarist and singer Brownie McGee in a duo that would last 50 years.
I'd like to introduce to you the originators of the blues, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee.
Terry and McGee were among the first folk blues artists to reach a national and international audience. They appeared in a film you might have heard of, the Steve Martin film, The Jerk, and Sonny also appeared on Broadway and in the film The Color Purple, for which he provided some of the soundtrack music. For his achievements, Sonny Terry was honored with a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship Award in 1982. So thank you. I do hope you have become just a little richer in your knowledge of Hollis, New York. And kindly remember to like, share, and subscribe so you can be notified of videos as soon as they are posted. As I was saying, through Sandra's community group Hollis 11423, I became acquainted with waybacks who for many years have championed the causes of Hollis. Like Mr. and Mrs. Shaw, just across the street, retired educators who tended to their offspring, the community, and their beautiful landscaping. Matriarch Leslie Shaw, whose smile, graciousness, and welcome in nature I will always remember, and how the kids and I would sit on her front porch looking out over Hollis, reminiscing. I remember her bright smile when she told me that the new barber shop that opened nearby was owned by her former students. Yes, the Simpson brothers, Zanu and Samuel's shop, Strictly Skills, was just that. As in no time at all, the barbershop was of international renown, catering to celebrity artists and athletes. Business was booming, and then the unthinkable happened.
Brothers, best friends, and owners of a barbershop. 35-year-old Sam Simpson can't imagine his life without his 32-year-old brother, Zanu Simpson.
I was next to him for like 14 hours a day.
He never imagined Monday afternoon would be the last time seeing his brother.
Good evening, I'm Dana Tyler. Tonight, a Queens community shocked and saddened over the shooting death of a barber.
It happened along South Conduit Avenue in Laurelton.
To take such a good person away.
Trisha Greaves, Simpson's friend since childhood, devastated.
People here tell us that he and his brother were such hard workers, but not today. Today, it is closed, instead lined with mourners, candles, and flowers.
Outside Zanu Simpson's shop in Hollis, flowers, balloons, and candles placed there in tribute.
Everyone stopping by this memorial made it a point to say not only did they lose an unbelievable barber, but a great friend and someone who gives back to the kids every summer.
And we give away 100 book bags.
People say he and his brother are men of the community.
Once a year when it came close to school opening, they would go out and spend money and buying books and things for the children. Mothers who couldn't afford the cuts for their children here, they would do it at free of cost.
He and his brother were also invited to the local elementary schools and high schools to talk to the kids about starting their own business, about being self-employed.
The Simpson brothers gave to the community, and after the loss of Zanu, the community gave back, renaming the corner of 99th Avenue and Hollis Avenue Zanu G. Simpson Way. At a ceremony where Councilman Denique Miller commented, a street naming is symbolic of a neighborhood's identity and tells future generations its story. Right next door to the barbershop, Sharon Chapman brought God's gospel to the neighborhood. Sharon Chapman followed her calling and created a space where people could fellowship and be supported.
To God be the glory for all the beautiful things that He is doing in Sister Sharon's life and to the neighborhood.
Among other programs geared towards feeding those in need, she introduced Bertha, a community fridge, during the days of COVID to allow for the sharing of food. Those with surplus could drop off food items and others could take what they needed free of charge.
We're going to feed them. Yes, yes, yes. Healthy foods. Yes. Live.
Hi, everyone. This is Sharon, your girl Sharon from God's Gospel Cafe.
Again, I ask, what is it about Hollis? Now, I think it is the unique and eclectic mix of antiquity, trimmed lawn, tree-lined suburbia, and the hood that gives Hollis such great appeal. And then there is something that makes it a great stepping stone for those searching to better themselves in life. Take Datz Deli, for example. It went viral after it moved into the neighborhood right on the block with the barbershop.
$2,000 saved up. Let's get a store. I thought I had so much money. I'm in Jamaica, Queens, and I'm right there on 172th Street. That's the slums. I want a lot of people to understand that come from the same neighborhoods I come from. You could get out of it if you work together with your family, you know? I like seeing the neighborhood I grew up in and seeing everything around me. And when I come and I see my store, it puts a smile on my face like, you did it. One night, we were just closing down and I was gonna go eat a beef patty with cheese. But my dad used all the cheese for the mac and cheese. So I make the beef patty and I put the mac and cheese in it and whole chunks of oxtail with the gravy and everything. And I looked at my little sister, I said, yo, come here, Jenny, this is it. She's like, nobody's gonna come in and eat a beef patty with macaroni and cheese, Joshua. You're crazy. Next thing you know, we'd already had like 6 people in front of the store at 6 o'clock in the morning. By the time the oxtail was done, the line was literally down the block.
The sandwich now rightfully called You Know What I'm Here For, causing a frenzy at Datz Deli.
I'm here almost every weekend now, and every time I come, I'm getting a sandwich with another coworker or somebody else.
Customers coming from near and as far as the UK and Jamaica in line for hours for popular Caribbean dishes such as saltfish and bake, curry shrimp, and goat meat served your way, like the fan favorite oxtails. Gotta get it while God's giving it to us.
That's a good line right there.
Absolutely. Well, Datz Deli has been open for just 6 months. They have already sold more than 15,000 patties and counting. The family says they struggled in the beginning to keep up with demand, but they have since developed a system, and they hope to expand soon.
Very good. Where is the patties you're supposed to bring them?
I was hoping we would get some patties.
They're too busy.
This one was ready to try a patty.
You already
never
know.
had a beef patty,
I'll have to go in person.
I come from nothing. I was out there on the street shoveling snow, picking up bottles, just saving up every penny because I knew I had a bigger goal. You see, I always be telling you just go for your dreams, right? All right, guys, you see we in Times Square with a Mac Patty, right? You ever thought we'd be here? Yo, big announcements coming, 3rd location, Times Square.
Congratulations, and a hoot and a holler goes out to Joshua Datz and family, now a part of the legacy of Hollis. And all this excitement is happening just a hop and a skip away from the Ketcham house.
Gospel Cafe. We're out here for Martin Luther King's birthday.
To be a cool place for folks to relax under the shade of a tree or visit a museum, to reflect on Datz Deli's humble beginnings while waiting for their order to be filled. No doubt, the railroad station being conveniently right across the street helped with the draw to Hollis, as it did 100 years ago, being just a 20-minute trip to downtown Manhattan and a 15-minute trip to Long Island. Speaking of, for many years, the 195th Street Hollis Terrace Block Association has petitioned local representatives and the Long Island Railroad to make improvements to the Hollis Long Island Railroad station, as they advocated for the residents who have had major concerns about safety and accessibility issues, not to mention that there really is no shelter, security, or seating there. The Hollis train station is about to get a much needed overhaul. Yes, it is. Finally, thanks to the very valiant efforts of the 195th Street Hollis Terrace Block Association that has rallied for years to get changes made.
The MTA told the Queens Chronicle that heavy construction is expected at the Hollis Long Island Railroad Station to make accessibility and other station upgrades, and it should be completed by December of 2026. Upgrades include a new south, eastbound, platform elevator, new ADA-compliant ramp to the north, westbound platform, new platforms and canopies, a new ice and snowmelt system installed within the platforms, new station signage, lighting and help points, and new stairs and access points along the length of the platforms for improved connectivity. The Help Point Communication System is a new technology program that puts subway customers in touch with transit personnel via an interactive device with a green information button to ask for travel aid and a red emergency button to be used for urgent situations.
How may I help you?
Hi, how do I get to 168th Street and Broadway from here, you know?
You need to take the Uptown number 6 train to 42nd Street, shuttle to Times Square, take the Uptown number 1 to 168th Street.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
This is a new day for us because it actually allows us to have a communication system that you will find at 150-foot increments along the entire platform, where with the simple push of a button, our customers can now connect with the active full-time booth or directly to the rail control center in the event that they need assistance.
Block by block, neighbors continue to fight for this beautiful community. Among the first on the block, though, were the warriors of Hollis LDC, the Hollis Local Development Corporation, founded by Gladys Warren in 1979, that aims to discourage residential overdevelopment, combat crime, boost the economy in the area, and rejuvenate the business district on Hollis Avenue. HLDC has been at the helm of some remarkable changes in Hollis. Getting a traffic light at a dangerous intersection. 10 years after first pitching the idea, a Jamaica Hospital Medicines facility on Hollis Avenue to bring healthcare closer to home. Scholarships, and the creation of the Hollis shopping strip at Francis Lewis and Hollis Avenue.
It is not often these days that a community puts out a welcome mat for a developer. But Roger Fisher, who expects to start construction in June on a strip shopping center at the intersection of Francis Lewis Boulevard and Hollis Avenue, was invited by residents of Hollis, Queens. The retail project, the first significant commercial investment in Hollis in more than 20 years, is the culmination of 4 years of work by Hollis residents who are determined to revive the neighborhood's blighted shopping street.
Great results happen when developers work in concert with the community Another developer that earned the community's favor was Fred C. Trump, said to revolutionize urban middle-class housing and change the face of Brooklyn and Queens, building over 27,000 dwellings in his career. The seedlings of the Trump real estate empire were planted right here in Hollis, Queens, where Fred C. Trump built some of his earliest houses.
2 years after his father died, at 15, Fred C. Trump started his own construction business. While in high school, he was apprenticed to local carpenters, took night school and correspondence courses in drafting and the building trades, and later took courses in architecture, industrial design, and construction management at the Pratt Institute. Too young to construct houses, Fred C. started out with garages, and when he finished high school in 1923, he partnered in a company called E. Trump & Son with his mother Elizabeth, who was considered a business dynamo in her own right and had been managing her late husband's real estate company. Elizabeth Trump administered the business, loaned Fred C. funds for his projects, and signed all checks as Fred was a minor. By 1924, ads appeared in the newspaper announcing, "Be King and Queen in a Trump home, houses constructed by Fred C. Trump." By 1926, Trump had erected 19 beautiful English-type homes of his own design on 199th Street in Hollis, the start of his real estate empire.
Fred C. then turned his attention to neighboring Jamaica Estates, where he built more upscale houses and lived till the end of his days. A frugal man who was not given to the glitz and the showiness of his more well-known son, Fred C. Trump amassed hundreds of millions of dollars building sturdy apartments and houses on immaculate yards for the middle class in neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens, over a 70-year career that was sullied by legal problems and scandals.
Woody Guthrie and the Trump family, specifically the man Guthrie called Old Man Trump. This story begins back in the early 50s when Woody Guthrie rented an apartment in Brooklyn from Fred Trump, Donald Trump's father.
It came to his attention that African Americans were not welcome to rent the apartments at Beach Haven.
When Guthrie found out people were turned away from Beach Haven because of the color of their skin, he once again did what he did best. He wrote a couple of songs. He also typed a single-spaced, full-page essay going into the details of equal rights, equal opportunity, and treating people with respect. In Guthrie's words, "I suppose old man Trump knows just how much racial hate he stirred up in the blood pot of human hearts." More than a half-century later, our country is still grappling with these issues.
And more developers are disrupting life in our neighborhoods, and often in a very callous and hurtful way. What happens, though, when a developer is not a good neighbor? When they don't seek to integrate and allow the community a voice, seeking only personal profit and not enhancement of the neighborhood.
And it was obvious that there's a crack in my foundation. For 4 years, I didn't feel like this home was my own. I didn't feel safe in it, and I felt bullied, honestly.
My sister Grace Ann and I echo these sentiments exactly. Upon our parents' retirement to Florida, we moved into the Ketcham house to preserve this amazing home for future generations, assuming all financial responsibilities of utilities, upkeep and improvements, mortgage, property taxes, and more since the late 1990s. The family continued to enjoy our home to the fullest until development interests were introduced. By December 2019, when a family limited liability corporation was somehow created and was integrated with a Jewish interest no more than 1 month later, they're now operating under the name 99-21 Hollis Avenue LLC. The water utility payment was taken out of our hands. But now we know what happens when developers use underhanded tactics to build a false and deceptive sense of privilege on a foundation of falsehoods, compounded by untruth, topped with blatant and outlandish lies. Can you believe this fellow actually told the police that I am the mafia? Not to put on the mafia or anything, but I think that's slander and defamation of character, seriously. Now my sister and I know firsthand the extent to which a disreputable developer will go to get their hands on a property through chicanery, manipulation, bully tactics, and even physical assault. We know all too well what happens when a developer crosses the line. Developer Asif or Assad Shiloni, who refers to himself as Joseph, has had us under constant surveillance, persistently knocking on our door, peeking through our window, and on one occasion even invading our more private upstairs bedroom space.
I don't even have the freedom to go into a court space. Don't even have the freedom to go into a court space without you showing up there to harass me.
In 2023, developers gained access and sealed a central door in our home, essentially blocking us off from our living spaces and valued possessions. But that wasn't their first attempt.
Over here that I've lived here since 1998.
That wasn't their first attempt. In 2021, we suddenly couldn't open the door. Developers had gained access, boarded up the doors, and moved in a young Israeli student on that same afternoon. We immediately removed the planks of wood and continued to enjoy our home. The young Israeli student, who thought a friend was offering him housing, was friendly with the kids, left within a few weeks, not wanting to be a part of the developer's chicanery. That incident was the first, but not the last attempt to invade our living space. In subsequent attempts, they trapped our pets, who wandered around the house as they normally would, denying them access to food and water. When we rescued the pets the first time, we discovered the door had been blocked by our furniture. The developer returned, and this time for days, we had to keep our windows open just to breathe. It turns out the callous and negligent developers had literally tarred the doorway shut, exposing us and the children in our household to harmful toxic fumes without even advising us. The developers have put our furniture out in the rain, not the first time they have endeavored to destroy our property, and have committed and incited senseless acts of violence in malicious attempts at intimidation. Fabiana Green married Hosang, or Michelle, as she's known in Hollis, ran the corner store at the end of the block some years back, where our families became acquainted. Given the ongoing harassment and the fact that I was undergoing 2 major surgeries in the course of 6 months, she and her family came to the house to be of support. Instead, sensing some kind of profit, they became henchmen for the developers.
We ain't running no halfway house. We ain't running no halfway house, Dirty.
Wait a second.
This ain't no halfway house.
But what's
you heard? This ain't no mother halfway house. This ain't no halfway house. This ain't no halfway house. Get your monkey ass out of here, man. Exactly.
I shuddered to think what would have happened to me, that I would have been impaled by flying glass if I hadn't run upstairs in a panic to call the police. For days, I was finding shards of glass at great distance from the window. As it was, I was recovering from surgeries needed because I was a victim of physical assault by the developer. A developer choosing to lay hands on me resulted in the need for surgical repair of all 4 completely or partially torn rotator cuff muscles on my right shoulder and 3 on the left.
The rotator cuff consists of 4 muscles that help raise and rotate the arm. Usually patients have pain on the outside of the shoulder, down the arm, and up the neck. Symptoms include the inability to raise one's arm above shoulder level.
Rotator cuff tear, the tendon has pulled away from the bone. Okay. So the goal of surgery is to bring that tendon back to the bone and have it heal. Okay.
Small camera or arthroscope and surgical instruments. Once placed, the arthroscope will display images into a video monitor, and your surgeon will use these images for guidance during the procedure. Implants called suture anchors are then placed in order to secure the repaired tissue to the bone. Your surgeon will then pull the tissue over the top of the head of the humerus for reattachment.
The recovery is long, so sorry. You're going to spend probably 6 weeks in a sling, and since the repair takes 3 months to heal, much of its strength, not all of its strength, the sling is designed to protect it for that duration.
Make it super stiff because we've immobilized it, because we got to let the stuff heal, and then we got to get you moving again after, with some of the physical therapy.
Imagine having to go through all the pain and debility of this process twice within the course of a year, and I did, because a developer chose to lay his hands on me. I had surgery in September of 1 year, beyond hurt that I ended up missing my precious mother's funeral. Then about 6 months or so later, after therapies to give me function for day-to-day living, I underwent the second surgery and did it all over again.
And the other major add-on is addressing the long head of the biceps tendon, which passes right through the shoulder joint. It's very often torn, so you've got to have a plan for that because that can be a component of your pain.
For me, the biceps were detached on both arms, but because of the severity of damage to the shoulder on the right, the biceps were not reattached. So now I can't proudly flex my biceps anymore without some discomfort. Not caring about this wee little physical offense, the developers returned with a crew just 1 week later and destroyed a bulk of the landscaping that I put in place about 30 years ago. And at the root of all this calamity is a prodigal brother by the name of Carol, or Kerry, also known as AJ, who has neither invested in nor lived at the Ketcham house, but wants to profit along with his friend Asif, or Assad, or Joseph. And apparently they are willing to do anything to achieve this end. Petition to the courts to address these situations fell on deaf ears. Oh dear, the idea of death in the community is not so far-fetched. Just down the road from the Ketcham house, a story is currently unfolding that also involves a family, a house in Hollis, but this time there are 2 suspicious deaths. This very sad story, in typical Hollis style, involves the family of yet another outstanding citizen, Layhmond Robinson Jr. Layhmond Mac Robinson Jr., who inspired and paved the way for black journalists, was one of the first 3 newspapermen hired by the New York Times. He used his talents and experience to give others whatever he could to further their lives, always recognizing his particular journey through some of the most challenging times in America.
In 1964, the New York Amsterdam News reported, "The powerful New York Times, which has over 250 Negro employees, about half of whom are in white-collar jobs, had only 3 Negro reporters among its 250 reporters and correspondents and 1 news assistant. They are Layhmond Robinson, its senior Negro staff writer, Ted Jones, and Junius Griffin, all 3 of whom do some coverage of civil rights news. Robinson, a veteran political reporter, is president of the Legislative Correspondent Association in Albany."
Fueled by a passion for pushing all of life's boundaries through education, application, and civil rights, Robinson pursued writing even when drafted in the Navy, and after earning a bachelor's degree in journalism and political science from Syracuse University, he relocated to New York City in 1950 to pursue graduate study at the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism, which is also the year in which he was hired at the New York Times. At the Times, Robinson progressed from copyboy to beat reporter through eventually covering Albany legislature. He married Elsie Blair in 1955 and moved to Hollis in 1964, where he lived with his wife and 5 children until his passing in 2013. Layhmond Robinson was the first person of color to be elected president of the Legislative Correspondents Association of New York State. As a seasoned reporter, he frequently interviewed key political figures such as Fiorello LaGuardia and Governor Nelson Rockefeller. Here he sits on a panel on the show The Newsmakers in 1963, interviewing Whitney M. Young Jr., president of the National Urban League, who after the death of Martin Luther King Jr. asked him to join the National Urban League as Director of Public Relations. In 1965, Robinson decided to leave the New York Times to work on television at ABC News, where he was a correspondent as well as editorial director at WABC. Layhmond Robinson's career would lead him to become public relations director for the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, to public affairs for the federal government, and lastly was as a news writer for the WCBS radio until his retirement in 1991. Considered Hollis royalty, key moments of the Robinsons' lives played out in the news media, but there was no preparation for what was to come.
These two siblings want to know how their mother and sister died in their childhood home. One man, allegedly now squatting in that very same home, is standing in their way.
Her brother-in-law.
You're her brother-in-law.
I've never seen you before a day in my life.
Who are you, sir?
I don't have to prove anything.
David and Teresa Robinson grew up in Hollis, Queens, in a house their parents bought in 1964. Their dad, Layhmond, was one of the first black reporters for the New York Times, and their mom, Elsie, worked for the New York City Housing Authority. Layhmond died in 2013, leaving their sister Deborah to care for their mother. During the pandemic, David dropped off groceries for his mother. Things got strange.
I believe that was the beginning of the end. As far as providing food and sustenance to my mother and most likely my sister when I was told not to come in the home and I had to leave. One time I had to leave the groceries in the garage, another time I had to leave them in the steps.
The locks on the house were changed. Their sister Deborah seemed to be controlling their mother. One day, David came into the house through the back door to find Deborah feeding Elsie plain chicken broth. Elsie died in 2021.
My mother was underweight, they claim, when she passed. From the information that, we just gathered, I did call the medical examiner's office, but they didn't give me the autopsy results because they said Debbie, or the deceased, my deceased sister, was handling things.
By the time David and Teresa found out, Elsie was cremated, and they don't know where her ashes are. 67-year-old Deborah died 2 years later, and just like her mom, was severely underweight. A neighbor alerted them to her death, which was shocking because, as far as they knew, she was in good health. David went to their home. He found a man claiming to be her husband. Court documents say his name is Leon Clark. Clark fought the siblings over Deborah's body but could never provide any proof of their marriage. The remains sat in a city morgue for more than a year. To solve the dispute, the city gave David the option to bury her in a potter's field, a cemetery traditionally reserved for the poor and abandoned.
I don't know this person, so if he could get me the marriage certificate, I'll stop talking. The day before my sister's birthday, when her body was discovered in that house, and the person who called the police was that person who just showed his face. When we came to the home, when we heard my sister died, he refused to come out of the home.
The NYPD and Queens District Attorney's Office say they're still investigating, but the family says the agencies aren't doing enough. Head to Gothamist.com to read more about this saga.
That person, grifter, narcissist, swagger, whatever he is, made no contribution to my father's accomplishments, to my mother's accomplishments, to our accomplishment, and has the audacity to illegally occupy the home.
My sister Grace Ann and I could probably say just about the same. Imagine these two developers, Joseph, AJ, Asif, Kerry, Assad, Carol, whoever they really are, have made no contributions whatsoever to the accomplishments of my amazing and hardworking mother, who gave us the gift of this outstanding home. And without even understanding its true value,
when the trees are all gone,
its value to the community.
We cannot allow them to take that house and destroy that landmark, but not in that place, not right here.
Without even understanding its value to history and to future generations, they will go to any length to destroy an irreplaceable and outstanding 200-year-old legacy.
Jason Antos, the president of the Queens Historical House, and a man who has written 7 books on the history of Queens.
And just very quickly, we're taking a look at the beautiful Ketcham House, 1848, 1849. All right, so this is a prime example of a pre-Civil War era home. It's one of the only examples of a pre-Civil War era homestead anywhere in this area. Just take a look at it. I mean, it's really incredible. And yeah, it's something that's been somewhat overlooked by time, and is a survivor, and it's still here with us today. And hopefully we can preserve it. It's in very good shape, and we can preserve it for future generations.
Queens is becoming more and more unrecognizable as we are losing our trees to giant skyscrapers.
So you see what's going on here. Years ago when I came for the first time in Jamaica, these buildings were not here. And it's not just regular apartments, it's luxury lease.
And every day it is encroaching more and more upon our residential communities.
You can see they got like the regular houses like this, but then over here you can see they're developing like a big apartment. It looks like a condo. This was not like this like 10 years ago. And look at the magnitude of this building. This one's done, but look, it's like 4 buildings.
It doesn't help that Mayor Adams has given a free rein to developers in the name of quote-unquote affordable housing to do whatever they want in our communities.
Kind of hiking up the hill, but I think the further I go...
Actually, it sounds more like displacement and more homelessness and just overload on our environment to me.
And one thing, Queens has a lot of residential area that kind of gives you that feel like if you're in the suburbs and not in New York City. You can start seeing the
in the 1960s, zoning laws were put in place to keep folks who were running off to suburbia in Queens, in a low-density area in the city. Now they want to scrap all that, change the character of our Queens neighborhoods, and overload an infrastructure that is not designed for Manhattan high-rise living. And let's not talk about the effects on the local environment.
Wow. Just amazed by this neighborhood. It's just pure beauty. The houses, the trees, the nature.
What you gonna breathe when we've only got money? When the trees are all gone and the air's turned funny. What you gonna buy with loads of cash when the rains are fade? What you gonna eat when we've only got money?
Good morning. My name is Alicia, and I'm a Cambridge Heights, Queens homeowner. We love you. Our neighbors are not for sale. Yeah. We won't be a part of your deal. You're supposed to represent us. We want a decent quality of life to choose where we want to live.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yatin Chu, and I'm president of Asian Wave Alliance. Our organization represents the interests of thousands of residents, property owners, and voters throughout the city. We speak for our friends and neighbors who are outraged at the mayor's blanket proposals that will destroy our communities. Many of us are immigrants who poured our life savings into our home. to put down roots in our communities, a nest egg for retirement, and maybe pass it down to our children. Not only will City of Yes throw uncertainty in property values, but most pressing is how the ill-conceived plan will degrade our quality of life in 1-2 family zone neighborhoods.
That's right. Say that again.
It is absurd that the City of Yes will eliminate all parking requirements for residential housing. We are already stressed with the lack of parking in Bayside, Flushing, Bensonhurst, Gravesend, with more multi-generational families living in 1-family and 2-family homes, sometimes owning 3 or 4 cars. We oppose the dangerous legalization of ADUs, basement apartments in flood zones, garage conversions, and backyard houses. The congestion and infrastructure demands in these less dense suburban areas cannot be supported without major investment in sewer lines, electrical capacity, roadwork, schools, and more.
Sanitation.
We are a city made up of hundreds of unique neighborhoods. But the City of Yes is a package of one-size-fits-all. Each neighborhood and community should be respected for our unique composition and concerns and not gentrified in favor of developer interests. We urge the City Council to reject the entirety of this harmful package of proposals from Mayor Adams. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. My name is Paul Graziano. I'm an urban planner, land use, zoning expert. I've been giving these presentations for months, and I've been talking about how dangerous the City of Yes is. Why? Why are we doing this? Why is Mayor Adams, the Department of City Planning, and their allies in government, including on the council, trying to destroy our communities? Because it's all about money. It's about money. It's not about affordable housing at all. Not at all. It's about rental units. Okay? Market rate rental units replacing owner-occupied neighborhoods, our 1 and 2 family and our co-ops and condos. That's what this is about, and we have had enough. Say that again. We have had enough. Warren Schreiber, the president of the Queens Civic Congress.
So we represent in excess of 70 civic groups in Queens. Going back, starting in 2004, every single community board in the city of New York, we spent hours and hours and hours down zoning our communities so that we could protect them, so that we could protect the 1 and 2 family homes. Any city council member who votes in support of the City of Yes, I am going to tell them that it's time for them to resign, because not only are they betraying their constituents and destroying our communities, they're eliminating their own jobs. Vote them out! The next person up, Laura Spalter from the Bronx Coalition Against Overdevelopment.
Don't be fooled by the mayor's PR jingle, a little bit of housing in every neighborhood. These massive zoning changes in City of Yes represent the wish list of deep-pocketed special interests, lobbyists, real estate, construction, and not-for-profit housing developers. Their mantra is, we have an affordable housing crisis. However, it is a false narrative that City of Yes will solve this crisis. The reality is City of Yes largely promotes unneeded luxury and market rate housing, not affordable housing. A more apt name is City of Cement, because increasing density, expanding the building envelope, reducing open space will seriously impact our antiquated infrastructure, exacerbate flooding, and destroy the quality of life and neighborhood character of our neighborhoods. We must fight the gutting of our land use protections and loss of community review. through elimination of the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, or ULURP. Instead, we're getting one-size-fits-all zoning changes that will allow unbridled development as of right, where it is currently prohibited. We must fight transit-oriented development. It will incentivize demolition of 1- and 2-family homes in order to build apartment buildings in our neighborhoods. We must fight town center zoning, which will allow 4-story apartment buildings to be constructed above ground floor businesses in our commercial areas. What they are not saying is, if implemented, this new construction will result in demolition of the mom-and-pop store businesses that are currently there and displacement of those businesses, while apartment buildings with downstairs businesses will open up with much higher rents. Fight the city of cement.
Thank you. We have a special guest today. She is Assemblywoman Jamie Williams. Not only is Jamie an incredible opponent of the City of Yes, but she introduced one of the most important bills in the Assembly this year. And although it will not pass this session, since the session will be over in a week, she will reintroduce it. And we've already gotten guarantees from other Assembly members and senators that if the City of Yes goes through, they're going to co-sponsor this legislation. What this legislation will allow is for any place in the City of New York to remove itself from the City of New York if the City of New York does not acknowledge and respect us.
Say that again.
Say that again.
Yes.
It will allow any community, it's actually a statewide bill, but it will allow any community that feels disrespected by their own government that wants to destroy their communities to allow themselves to become their own communities away from New York City. So here I go, Assemblywoman Jamie Williams. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to thank Paul for doing what he does for New York City. Because without him, we will not be here today. I'm Assemblymember Jamie Williams that represents the southern part of Brooklyn, and we are saying a very strong no to the City of Yes. The City of Yes is going to destroy communities like ours. It will destroy communities like ours. We pay our taxes. We raise our families. We don't want the overcrowding. And it's an illusion that they're creating. An illusion that they're going to have all this housing because there's a crisis.
They need that.
So this housing crisis is on every one of our backs that's standing here today. But who do they want to put in those housing? Is it our seniors? No. Is it our veterans? No. Is it our mentally ill? No. Oh, probably it's the illegal migrants that are crossing the border. Probably. Okay?
They can't afford
So guess what?
Right.
You bring them there.
Good point.
Our taxes still have to get paid. Guess who's going to be holding the empty bag?
We are.
We are. We are. And we have to stand strong to the politics that is happening, not just in our city, but in the state and in this country. Because people like us, tax-paying, law-abiding citizens, our right is being taken away from us. And we have to make sure when elections come that we have the right people representing our interests. So God bless you, and we say no to the City of Yes. No! No! And God bless you, Paul. Thank you. You're doing God's work. Thank you.
We have dozens of organizations being represented here today. The leadership, as well as residents from all over the city. Mayor Adams is saying all kinds of things. I want to read a quote that he said. We need to build. We have an inventory problem. We have to build more inventory. Our zoning laws were racist on many levels. It prevented people from living in communities. We have to build more. So, on that note, I want to hand it over to Steve Barrison. Oh yeah, sorry.
Do we need more housing? Yes, we do.
No,
but how do we do it? If your window's bad in your house, do you fix the window or you knock the whole damn house down?
Thank you. No.
Okay. No. I've been a real estate attorney doing land use for over 41 years.
Wow.
You do zoning, it takes years to do one community's change and everybody gets involved, and it takes years and years and years, and you evolve until everybody agrees and you get a consensus to do what's good for the community. This is what's good for Ribney.
Thank you.
That building over there used to be called City Hall. We at the Small Business Congress renamed it 11 years ago Ribney Hall, which is real estate board of New York, for those of you that don't know.
That's right.
The mayor wants 500,000 new units in 10 years.
How?
You with me? Simple math.
How?
Right now, without changing the zoning, probably 20, 22 million, 15 million, depends on who you ask. But 20 to 25 times what he's asking, we can do it right now without changing the zoning. So that's called, as one lady signed to my left is, the big lie. That's the big lie.
That's right.
Number two, small businesses. I'm here representing the Small Business Congress. You hear about we got to put small business everywhere, on the corner, in the ground, next to your neighbor, all above you, beside you, in the middle of places, as if there aren't enough stores in New York City. Well, let me give you a news flash in case City Hall doesn't know what we know. There are tens of thousands of empty stores right now on every main street, in every community. There is no community that doesn't have empty stores, even Fifth Avenue, even Rockefeller Center, and right here around City Hall. Tens of thousands of empty stores.
Why is it?
The AIA, a major architectural organization, wrote in their fall 2024 issue of Oculus, office vacancy in Manhattan hit a record 22.7% last year. That's more than 75 million square feet of New York City office space sitting unoccupied, the equivalent of nearly 30 Empire State Buildings. Without significant intervention, the current vacancy rate is projected to persist through 2026. The question on everyone's mind, of course, is, what do we do with these empty office buildings? And more importantly, how do we do it? As office towers continue to sit partially empty, with an estimated $1.6 trillion in commercial property financing expected to mature in the next 2 years, the threat of default and stranded assets is real. At the same time, the housing crisis in New York City continues to worsen. It's getting harder and harder for people to find a place to live in the city that is within their means.
Why? Why are they going out of business? Because they have no rights for commercial lease renewals. You're in business for 10 years, you're in good standing, you can't even get another 10-year lease. They up your rent 1,000%. There's no negotiation. That's why we tried to pass the Small Business Job Survival Act. Go to savenycjobs.org. You'll learn about that. So we don't need small businesses to be popping up underneath where we live, next to where we live, above where we live, in the middle of housing projects. We need to support our neighborhood main streets and small businesses. Yeah. That's called the lifeblood of New York, not this phony crap. Next, housing. Let's speak about housing. Oh my God, I represent landlords, I hate to admit it, not many, I'm a small-time guy, but I have clients with buildings all around the city. Small ones, 15, 18, 19, 25 units, and guess what? Almost every single one of them is warehousing.
My God.
And I'm talking 30, 40, 50, even 60% vacancy. And that's just in my little client list. There are 50% vacancies in all the big offices in Midtown. COVID changed that. They said they're all going to come back. Guess what? They're not. But the rest of us in the 4 boroughs, we are here for quality of life. We're here for community. We don't want to pay higher taxes to support the rich people that aren't paying the taxes. This truly is a real estate giveaway, and all they care about is developers and not care about the city and our communities. So the city of yes means we got to say no.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. All of us have been fighting this now since 2020. First it was the Speaker of the City Council, Corey Johnson. Then it was the Governor, not 1 year, not 2 years, but even this year, 3 years in a row. And by the way, we beat the Governor, and we beat Corey Johnson. And we've had enough of this nonsense. This is going to destroy our communities.
Long Island fought back. Long Island fought back.
Okay,
Tell them that.
I want to introduce the head of the Staten Island Civics United. This is Joe McAllister.
Thank you, Paul.
Good morning, everybody. All here again. We're fighting for something that we don't have to fight for. We should be somewhere else right now enjoying the weather. Back then, we had anything, we worked with the people. Now today, everywhere we turn, we have to fight for what we want? What kind of living is this? This is not right. This is not what we pay taxes for, to live here. We're here now again with Paul Graziano. We thank you so much for letting us know. We had fought.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul.
And Paul, you're hearing all the true statements from all the different parts of New York City that we're here to tell everyone of what is actually happening. And this is something here that's not made up. It's not bull. We have fought Governor Hochul, thanks to our state senators and the state assembly. They knocked it out of the ballpark. They voted against it. Now Adams took it. He's got it on steroids. City of Yes proposal. We do not want it. We do not want it. We say no to City of Yes proposal 100%. No City of Yes. No, no, no.
Yes in my backyard? You mean yes to displacement?
For decades, developers have been building market-rate towers and raising our rents, destroying existing affordable housing and pushing working people and people of color out of our neighborhoods.
The city government has been supporting developers to do this, especially in communities of color across the NYC, resulting in the harassment of tenants, skyrocketing rents, half-empty luxury towers, and very little truly affordable housing remaining.
But working people from Chinatown and the Lower East Side, Harlem, Sunset Park, and Flushing have been fighting back against luxury development and displacement.
Queens Civic Congress represents over 75 civic associations in Queens, and we are all opposed to City of Yes because it will destroy our way of life, our neighborhoods, and our zoning regulations. We cannot stand for that. We have engaged Paul Graziano, who's an expert on zoning, to be our champion to fight this all the way. We are together in this, in the same boat, whether it's Queens or Brooklyn, because we have to preserve the same thing that we value so much.
Over 200 civic groups citywide have been fighting to preserve our way of life for the past few years. Were you aware of the way things have been unfolding in the Big Apple?
Reverend Carlene Thorbs, representing Queens Community Board 12, expresses strong opposition to the City of Yes. She cites lack of environmental impact studies, insufficient infrastructure considerations, and inadequate community engagement as major concerns. She highlights the need for parking in South Jamaica, characterizing it as a driving community. She points out that some new apartments in the downtown area of Community Board 12 are empty with rents starting at $3,000. She suggests that community conversations should have occurred before the initiative was developed, and she also expresses concern about the fate of existing shelter residents and questions if they will have priority in new housing.
Even the Manhattanites are not feeling this plan. Village Preservation, a leader in preserving the architectural heritage and cultural history of Greenwich Village, the East Village, and NoHo, expressed concerns the plan would strip away hard-fought-for zoning protections and vastly increase allowance for transfer of air rights from individually landmarked buildings, allowing for significantly increased development on nearby sites without public review. In some, they feel that this plan will do grave harm to the neighborhoods, accelerating out-of-scale and out-of-character development, largely of luxury condos. Even in the most densely populated sections of Manhattan, the Upper East and West Sides, alarm bells are ringing because of heavy concerns about further elimination of affordable housing that traditionally has been replaced by luxury high-priced buildings. The fact that the public has not been involved in the planning or will not have a say in future use of their neighborhoods, and that they will be left without adequate lighting, air, and green spaces needed for healthy living. When the Upper East and West Sides of Manhattan got together to share information, they pointed out the following.
What lies ahead? I'd like to introduce my colleague, Anna Markham, the Executive Director of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Markham. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of the Upper East Side. We are thrilled to host George James tonight, a pioneer in the world of visualization and simulation in planning and development. George James is one of the most valuable resources of the New York City historic preservation community, and we are so thrilled to have him here tonight to explain to us the nitty-gritty of City of Yes.
Thank you so much, Anna. I want to talk a little bit about where City of Yes has come from. So in May 2022, Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul announced New New York, called a blue ribbon panel in the title. And the panel was set up to reimagine how and where people work. The New New York panel included some of the biggest names in industry. Bankers, the CEO of Goldman Sachs is on it, real estate, you have Tishman Speyer and Durst Organization, venture capitalists, tech and pharmaceutical CEOs, lots of CEOs and then also there were several former Bloomberg administration officials on it as well. And this panel came up with a plan, making New York work for everyone. December 2022 it came out. It has 40 separate initiatives, mostly about streamlining regulations in New York City. The plan calls for changes to regulations that impact how we both live and work. This plan was developed without any public input, wasn't asked for, it wasn't given, though they did interview some selected people. Also, in 2022, the mayor set up BLAST, which stands for the Building and Land Use Approval Streamlining Task Force. BLAST was set up to, quote, cut red tape, streamline processes, and remove administrative burdens. BLAST was different than New New York because it was government-led, and then the different agencies in government consulted with 50 corporations on their administrative burdens when they're dealing with the city. So they're mostly real estate, and then the people who work for real estate. BLAST made 111 separate recommendations to deregulate the city. There was no public involvement during this process. And together, these deregulation efforts are called City of Yes. And I use the term deregulation because that's what the city calls City of Yes when they're presenting it at public meetings. Deregulation, streamlining, cutting red tape. I'd like to reflect for a moment on regulations. The Upper East and Upper West Sides of Manhattan are two of the most densely populated neighborhoods in America, and some of the most densely populated in the world. We live in buildings that are packed together, which soar hundreds of feet into the air, and every day we get into elevators, tiny metal boxes suspended over deep shafts without any thought that they're safe. You know, that's a minor miracle in my book. We don't worry about our buildings falling down, or our food is safe to eat, or our water is good to drink. We know if there's a fire or an accident or a medical emergency, there will be help coming because of regulations. Regulations are there to take care of the details, so we don't have to think about them most of the time. Our urban environment is heavily regulated. And to that I say, thank goodness. I'm suspicious whenever anybody uses the term deregulation in a generically positive way. While the details matter, deregulation is often a bad thing, especially if it is being pushed for the wrong reasons. Of course, the folks that are paying for regulations want less of them. They cost money. But for most regular people, that's money well spent. And so when it comes to land use and zoning, City of Yes streamlines a host of approvals, creates shortcuts for others. How does that public benefit from that? If projects spend less time in public review, have less public input, is that a good thing? Is it a good thing to have less environmental review, as City of Yes is currently proposing? City of Yes wants to relax a lot of these regulations. So you could have, in the future, you could have a barbershop or a beauty salon with 3 outside employees in your apartment. There is no restriction regarding traffic or the number of customers served. A person can open a barbershop, a veterinarian medicine office, photography studio. Really, it's most any commercial use, even some small-scale manufacturing in your apartment. One of my concerns is that the removal of the hard size limit could encourage owners from to purchase neighboring units so they can expand for their business, which is bad for housing. If you're buying your neighboring unit, that means there's one less unit for housing. Amusement park rides are limited to Coney Island. City of Yes will allow all amusements in more places as long as they're enclosed. I picked out this picture here because this ride, enclosed in glass, has already been proposed in a new hotel on 8th Avenue, and its illegality is, under current zoning, has been challenged. But the building department has not answered the challenge to this because essentially they're waiting for City of Yes to pass, because when City of Yes passes, this ride would be permitted in that hotel as of right.
Why such a focus on City of Yes? Honestly, it's like a bomb going off, threatening the existence of the peace, the stability of everything we hold dear in our communities. Just to support developers who seem to have run out of space in a lot of areas to develop. I mean, really. I wonder, will the youth of today have the same choices we have enjoyed in New York City in their future? Have a look at these images. They have circulated. Look, I am thinking that people are going to be incredibly late or not go to church for weddings, funerals, and births at all if there's nowhere to park. And just to save developers money. Oh, let's not make them responsible for taking parking into account. I can only imagine this scenario. A building filled with residents living their noisy lives right next to a church that will bring more people into the neighborhood, competing for space, for parking, and for noise rights. How comfortable will that be? And why? Why not let the developers convert that $1.6 trillion of empty office space in Manhattan, the space of 30 Empire State Buildings, into affordable housing? But I guess developers don't convert. And I suppose no matter what, the aim is to maintain Manhattan as the pride of the rich at all costs. Just rehouse the folks who are simply not rich enough anymore and are being priced out to what they're used to, but this time in Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and the Bronx, to make room for the super rich who can still afford to live in Manhattan. So, it's the rest of the city that has to pay the price, like pawns in this lurid and authoritarian game of developer chess called the City of Yes.
As someone who was raised and has lived in South Jamaica, Queens, for almost my entire life, I see the mayor's proposed City of Yes initiative as nothing short of blatant corruption. This plan is an attempt to sell out our few prestigious residential neighborhoods to large developers, betraying the communities that make our city unique. Residents in my neighborhood have consistently expressed desires for better roads, improved infrastructure to reduce flooding, and better schools to serve our children. Instead of focusing efforts on improving the quality of life for its taxpayers, the mayor and large developers, in an authoritarian style, are attempting to force neighborhoods where people chose to live in low-density areas to raise children to give up their sovereignty under the guise of affordable housing. This initiative is not progress. It is a rapid and depressing decline. This is beyond unethical. Our elected officials need to be held accountable for selling out the people. The lowest, we need a genuine effort to address our city's issues, one that focuses on improving the quality of life for all residents, not just the interests of large developers. It is time to reject the City of Yes and demand a city that works for its people, not against them. Let's stand up for our neighborhoods, our families, and our future.
These are the words of 30-year-old Dwayne Moore, resident of Queens, who echoed the sentiments of a vast majority of New Yorkers. And then, just like that, City of Yes housing was passed in December of 2024 with a high percentage of no votes in the City Council.
Controversial move today by the New York City Council. It's redefining the so-called City of Yes housing plan, trying to build more affordable housing in the country's biggest city, but the program pushed by Mayor Adams has opposition, like cutting back on zoning restrictions to not require parking, a very big deal.
31 in the affirmative, 20 in the negative, and 0 abstentions.
But in outer boroughs like Staten Island and Queens, the news for many residents is anything but good.
A city of no.
Mary Offenanger has lived in her single-family house in Bayside Hills, Queens, since 1980.
Putting bigger buildings and 3 families in these one-family homes, it's just going to change the whole neighborhood.
Some pretty upset residents.
If you've watched this far, I sincerely want to thank you. Please remember to like, share, and very importantly, subscribe so you can be notified of new information that I will be sharing. I'll be back. Now, living in these times seem nightmarish at times. But here's hoping we're all learning along together and that we'll be better and stronger because of all these challenges. So let's find out more. Council member Vicky Palladino sums things up in her explanation for her vote of no.
Permission to explain my vote.
Permission granted.
Well, once again, we're here, and it's the tale of 2 cities. I'm going to tell you something. We did this wrong. I said it from the beginning. This was like a freight train that got rushed through. It's as simple as that. The process was a mess from day one. And then in the final days, last week, 2 weeks ago, we rushed through negotiations and compromises in order to get this passed. I fear that this body is now going to spend years trying to make sense of what we are about to do, all because we didn't take the time to do this right, or to listen carefully to what the people are telling us.
And what the people of New York were saying was, no, we don't want this imposed upon us.
First thing I want to thank Alicia and LaTanya. These are some fierce women right here who not only put this together, but put together the massive Cambria Heights meeting that we had 1 month ago, where almost 950 people turned out. We want to make it clear, we are not playing. This is not a joke. We are tired of defending our basic rights. We have 15% of the city is zoned single family. 9% is zoned two family. 25% of the city is 1 and 2 family zoning. Most other cities in the country are 60, 70, 80% 1 family zoning. It's an outrage that this Department of City Planning and this mayor and their allies want to destroy a very important minority. But guess what? We pay the largest share of property taxes in the city of New York. We are funding this government, and the government says we should not exist. So on that, I say no! 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 No to the city of yes!
When we leave here today, I want you to remember that word no, because not only us, not only the community leaders, you're going to tell your neighbors. You're going to tell them what? Everybody. No!
I come from a district in Northeast Queens, and in Queens, as it was earlier stated, 12 out of 14 rejected this particular City of Yes plan. What it is it was not planned properly. For example, infrastructure experts tell us that we can barely sustain housing as it currently exists. Flooding is a major problem in this city. Sewers are overwhelmed as it is, and the electrical grid is at a breaking point. And we continue to strain it even more with the electrification mandates, adding thousands of new households to these systems without first considering local infrastructure, which is going to result in a disaster. You know, we've been told we're in a housing crisis. This is not the case. What we have here is an affordability crisis that is not limited just to housing. But adding density isn't going to lower the cost of living. It never has.
Councilmember, your time has expired.
Just one more second, please. I know a lot of hard work went in, but I have to agree with my district, and I must vote no. Most definitely no.
And Councilmember Palladino's no extends to being a part of the civic groups that have now come together to launch a lawsuit against the city on behalf of all the people whose lives will be turned upside down by these changes.
Jack Lester, the attorney for a conservative group of lawmakers and civic groups who are suing Mayor Eric Adams over his City of Yes for housing plan, filed a lawsuit on March 26,
applying City of Yes to a place like Hollis that has been fighting like the Dickens for years to keep the status quo will be like bulldozering our history without any care in the world. All the things I've been talking about now on a big scale.
Posing a lot more overdevelopment, and that kind of flies in the face of some of the complaints you've seen or you heard today.
One plaintiff, City Council Minority Leader Joanne Ariola, asserted that the lawsuit makes it clear that not only did the city lie to us all, but it also broke the law in the process. The lawmakers argue that this plan would fundamentally alter the outer borough neighborhoods they represent and would open them up to the whims of unsupervised developers. The communities intend to fight back to not have their rights trampled. Councilmember Holden added that building more housing in the neighborhoods he represents would alter the character that brought people there in the first place.
We're going to fight like hell to protect our neighborhoods.
Holden said.
We have the right to feel the sun in our backyards because we chose that when we bought our home. We said, we want to have sun. We don't want to have skyscrapers.
The outer boroughs, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island, were the areas where a New Yorker could escape the cramped spaces and hustle and bustle that is Manhattan, and raise a family where the grass is literally greener. Zoning laws created in 1916 and updated in 1961 were put in place to ensure a bit of suburbia within city limits.
What are you looking for? A place to live. Your warmth, your love, your work, your rest from work, your quiet and the sounds you like, your privacy, your friends, a good place for children, a place to grow in, a place we can afford, the right place for us.
For decades, we might even say centuries at this point, people have traveled to make a home attracted by the natural beauty of the landscape and the prospect of a peaceful life.
Would this be it? This one?
As longtime residents of Hollis moved out to the suburbs of New York City, the black middle class found a new home in places like Hollis. Layhmond Robinson, one of the people who paved the way for black news reporters, moved his young family to Hollis in 1964. His daughter noticed.
Hollis is the black middle class that made a way out of no way, and my parents were part of that. My father came from Louisiana. He fought in World War II. My mother's an immigrant from Jamaica. They met in Harlem where everybody met.
Although Hollis was a neighborhood in transit in the 1960s, with some families moving out to the suburbs of Long Island and other families moving in from the chaos and congestion of Manhattan, the children immediately befriended each other and created the kind of lifelong bonds that you would typically find in small-town USA. Take Darrell Romaine, for example, whose West Indian family arrived in Hollis from Harlem in 1962. Jeepers, that's a long time ago. Darrell grew up in Hollis during its glory days, immediately bonding with the kids on the block and eventually making friends with a wide cross-section of the neighborhood through a mutual love of old cars. He even became intimate with folks from the dark side of the community during the more challenging times and still lives in Hollis today. A way back. A child of the 1940s through 1970s who daily celebrates the history of the town, an invaluable asset that keeps Hollis alive through the administration of a Facebook page, which serves as a gathering place for other waybacks to preserve and share memories as well as some fascinating data about Hollis, this outstanding place that they all call home. In much the same fashion as Deli did when he created the memorable Hollis NY website, perhaps without truly knowing it, Donald Deli created a valuable snapshot of a time long past, which has the promise of guiding Hollis back to a place where a strong sense of community created by people sharing experiences and building neighborly connections will foster a greater sense of belonging and contribute to a safer, more resilient, and vibrant environment. And at times such as the ones we're facing today, which I don't mind saying, with not the most desirable changes in the federal government and New York City's mayor's City for Yes plans, a stronger sense of community is definitely key to bringing people together to advocate for and support each other in the fight to overcome threats to the overall well-being of our residents and business community. So here, Wynolia Pulliam is seen seated at Lester and Amelia Allen's garden party from a time when Hollis's residents overtly celebrated and pulled together. Neighbors of Dr. Michael Kurtz and Donald Deli, the Allens played an important role in the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King's widow, Coretta Scott King, was a frequent visitor to their Hollis Park Gardens home in the 1970s. Coverage of one of the garden parties they often threw shows residents and VIP guests getting together.
Lester Allen commented at his party, "It was a wonderful party. Neighbors greeted each other and exchanged information with neighbors. It was an opportunity to meet and speak with elected officials and community leaders."
One such community leader, Yvonne Reddick, District Manager of Community Board Number 12 that serves Hollis, Queens, captured here on Hollis NY back in 2002, receiving a Distinguished Community Service Award due to her efforts in securing a major state-of-the-art upgrade to water wells that had previously pumped a contaminated groundwater supply to the community.
The most delicious water in the world is not bottled. The most delicious water in the world comes out of every New Yorker's faucet.
As usual, when it comes to NYC, as Councilwoman Palladino pointed out, it is a tale of two cities, Manhattan and the outer boroughs. New York City boasts that it has the best water supply world over from upstate reservoirs, but a 2004 Department of Environmental Protection report noted that residents in southeastern Queens, where Hollis is located, were the unlucky recipients of well water as well, sometimes with contaminants. Yes, indeed. I remember going to town hall meetings with Sandra Atwells and Mrs. Pulliams in protest against the well water and poor water quality. That's why I say a big hurrah to Mrs. Reddick for helping to sort out the wells, and now the local groundwater wells are state of the art.
Last stop, your apartment.
Still, I repeat, NYC is a tale of two cities. Imagine, the other evening, I went to fetch some drinking water for the pets, and this is what I found coming out of all the taps in this huge house. This was what life was like back in the day. More often than I would like to say. But it shows how very critical it is to become involved in your community, to be an advocate, to make the changes that you would like to see for your own well-being and the well-being of your neighbors.
In 2021, Mrs. Reddick commented, "I was so involved in the community that I was actually encouraged by the then district manager of Community Board 12, as well as the elected officials, to join the community board as an official board member."
A very familiar face in the local community, Yvonne Reddick was highly praised for her extraordinary achievements in her 40-plus years of service as district manager of CB12 when she retired from this post just last month in April of 2025. We wish her the very best in all her future endeavors, and I hope, I really hope, that includes a lot of rest. I mean, this was a lady whose dedication had her return to work after a car accident left her in a critical state with all kinds of major injuries. Oh my goodness, that's the kind of dedication and community spirit that all communities can benefit from. Makes me think about the tiny village of Nyabahanse in Kenya and the remarkable changes that grew out of the spirit of community. And I saw a powerful film recently, Finding Her Beat, about how female taiko drummers from all over the world came together during COVID in bitter cold Minnesota and proved once again that when community comes together, amazing things happen. As a matter of fact, we found that in Hollis. We found it through the ages. When the going gets tough, the concerned residents of Hollis get going. I remember when I was called into action in aid of the community during COVID. Our group came together because of an improper demolition in progress. I had been the victim of a physical assault and was recovering from surgery when I received a very urgent call from a neighbor to come and see what could be done. Neighbors who barely knew each other came together within the hour with the common goal of preserving our community. Our town Hollis is known for its tree-lined streets, its large single-family homes, and its community spirit, features that are important to our community, so we've come together to preserve them.
Marie was working on this landmark for years. This is nothing new. She's been working on this, looking at the history of all the homes. So this was not anything new to her. When the demolition started occurring, and then we started to hearing that other people were at risk for demolition, that's how we started to take actions. That's how we started to form a community and an association, because no one was notifying the community, first of all, of the demolition. And the part that's disturbing is that is a violation. The environmental EPA needed to be informed about this, because We're talking about these homes that are built in 1910, 1920. They have lead, they have asbestos, and some of them even have arsenic. So this started raising a lot of commotion and question because people started taking their own footage of what was going on. And this is how all of this formed. Because if a person is getting a home repair due to insurance and they have to uphold certain practices, why isn't that required for developers?
The City of Yes heightens concerns about the imbalance of power between developers and residents.
The City of Yes was created by real estate developers,
which will upzone every neighborhood in New York City with no guarantees of affordable housing whatsoever.
The City of Yes will hit people of color the hardest and hurt all working people and small businesses.
Developers are lying to you to line their pockets. They pretend that flooding the market with luxury developments will lower all our rents.
It will raise rents and accelerate displacement.
And we will all be left fighting over the few remaining affordable units.
It makes it even more important for the community to speak out, especially now that City of Yes, which favors developers, is in place. Protect our historical buildings before developers eradicate them all. Your voice does count. An important reminder from our 44th president.
It is up to all of us to fix this. The most important office in this democracy is the citizen, the ordinary person who says, no, that's not right. I do think one of the reasons that our commitment to democratic ideals has eroded is that we got pretty comfortable and complacent. It has been easy during most of our lifetimes, and now we're at one of those moments where, you know what, it's not enough just to say you're for something. You may actually have to do something and possibly sacrifice a little bit.
Thank you for being a friend. I want to thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I want to thank you. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you. Thank you for being a friend. So come back now. You hear?